Hey guys, September 17th, 2020, Astrological Stock Market forecast for today. Breaking these days down this week one by one only because I'm a little crunched on time. So just tune back in tomorrow for September 18th, and I should have that up tomorrow night some point. But September 17th, 2020, we're going to be breaking this one down. It doesn't look like anything's changing too much right now, as far as we're having a pretty decent week in the New York Stock Exchange. It was up a bit today. I know the end of the day, everything sort of ended up down a little bit as far as some of the indexes. Not everything, obviously. But, you know, it was a pretty decent day. And at the end, there was some tough stuff. We've been expecting that back and forth a little bit. But overall, the week has been a lot better than the last, X amount of days of September. Now, to start the day, the sun is trine to Saturn. And, I got some notes here dealing with the creation of reality. So Saturn gives it a practical touch, and Virgo means that we're doing the work. So state-run businesses, because Saturn, state-run businesses or corporations are ruled by Saturn. So we're working with more stability here, because this is a harmonious aspect, the trine between Saturn and between the Sun in Virgo. This is about creating reality, right? So everything that was started last January, when the Sun was conjunct to Saturn, that was about when this whole sun cycle started, obviously the annual cycle, and now we're getting stabilizing growth, okay? Stability to our growth in the stock market, which is good. The work that's happening seems to be picking up, and it seems to be a bit more concrete, at least for tomorrow anyways. Now the new moon is making things more eventful in the morning. The new moon is happening at 7 a.m. That's only a couple hours before the market opens. So some of these experiences may appear random, as they do every month when we have a new moon that starts a new cycle. So that means that some of the new experiences are on a different level than they were before. And so by nature, as we shift gears, things do seem a bit random. So here's one of the big ones. Two Rosettas are in effect. The Moon, Saturn, Sun, Pluto, Mars, North Node. And then we have the North Node, Mercury, Jupiter, and Neptune. So I got a question about the Rosettas, so I just want to flip over to the actual chart and break this down really quick. Someone did ask me earlier what was more refined. So which of the two ends or houses to the Rosetta are more refined? So you have Jupiter and you have Mercury. They are in square to one another. So that's tension-filled aspect. Okay, this is what a Rosetta is like. Jupiter is having some tension with Mercury, so Jupiter goes over to Neptune, who it's in sextile with. So that's a harmonious aspect. So Jupiter's having some problems with Mercury. It runs on over here to Neptune, and it says, hey, listen, Neptune, I got a problem with Mercury. And Neptune says, you know what? Me too. I don't care for that guy at all. See, now, Neptune 180 degrees away would be somewhere in Virgo. But it's not 180 degrees away. It's 150. Now 150, it's this subtle tension that seems to be happening. It's called an inconjunct. So with an inconjunct, what happens here is Neptune sort of has a slight problem with Mercury. It kind of feels irked by Mercury once in a while, even though they may exchange smiles in the hallway and may be able to get along when they're in class together without Jupiter being involved. So Neptune also has a square here to the North Node. And so Neptune's got a problem with the North Node, and Neptune says, you know what, I got a problem with this guy too. And Jupiter says, you know what, I have this inconjunct to that guy too. So they take each other's side because they have a harmonious sextile. And they say, you know what, we got a problem with this guy, we got a problem with that guy. But then the North Node is trine to Mercury, so the North Node and Mercury basically do the same thing. They say, we got a good thing going on, and the North Node says, but I got a problem with Neptune, and Mercury says, me too. I got this inconjunct going on here with Neptune. You know, he smiles at me in the hallway, but then we got problems. And I know Jupiter and Neptune have been talking crap behind my back. So when you ask, okay, well, what is more refined here? It's really hard to say, because it's just a giant circle of conflict, where there's allies, Mercury, in this case Mercury and the North Node, and Jupiter and Neptune, and then there's tension, there's enemies, Jupiter's enemies with Mercury, but you know, Neptune's enemies with the North Node right here, so Jupiter's like, you know, I got your back and I'm enemies with them. So you can see how it breaks off, and now I've just filled the screen with too much junk. But you can see how it breaks off, and then there's just so much that it's so hard to say this is more refined or that is more refined. There's no doubt that a trine is a lot stronger than the sextile. See, like, their relationship may need a bit more work. So I guess if you want to say that the stronger of the friendships here would be the North Node and Mercury, but seeing the North Node as a point, I mean, maybe you give a little bit more credit to the planets, but the North Node is a pretty significant point. In an individual chart, it's the spiritual mission, and in this chart, it's eventfulness. It's the kinds of evolutionary cycles we're experiencing right now on a conscious level collectively. And then you have the squares, which are pretty major aspects and pretty strong. So I'd say the squares are going to be mostly felt, and that's why you're going to have that buildup of tension. But you also have key release points here. So that's why there's back and forth. That's why this can also drive growth, but it just as much as it can drive issues with the tension-filled aspects. This is kind of one of those where it's not so easy to read. I hope that helps you guys understand a little bit more about the Rosetta aspects and what's going on and when we're delineating these things. As far as the end of the trading day, the moon is exactly semi-square to the midheaven. So with the moon semi-square to the midheaven, we're trying to let go of all the restrictions of the past so that we can move forward finally. So the moon is a monthly cycle, so every month something's going on, but it's not always in relationship to the midheaven of the market. So the fact that at the very end of trading it's making this exact semi-square means that the markets want to be somewhere. They're aspiring to this point in the midheaven, but in order to get there, they need to let go of some of the issues that have come up from the past, whether it be regulations, deregulations, etc. The stellium is still involving the ascendant Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn. This seems to have been good for the markets, but also it's weakening a little bit in certain areas. So that may cause some of what we've seen towards the end of the day, including other tense points. As far as everything, I don't see a significant lift or drop off, except for the fact that the sun is trine to Saturn, so that should be pretty good for us tomorrow morning. The new moon could bring some refreshing energy. The Rosettas, though, obviously a little bit of tension that hasn't seemed to be deterring the markets too much lately as far as this last week has gone. So look for the trends to continue. We'll keep an eye out for anything major and look back tomorrow for for September 18th. Sorry, July. right, and I will talk to you soon.